Alright, in this unit we're going to be getting into waste. We're going to be looking at types of waste the U.S. produces, the amount of each type, ways we can store it, and things that are going to be harmful, comparing harmful storage versus non, those types of things. So let's go ahead and get started. Of all the waste in the U.S., most of it, about 75%, is going to come from our removal of fossil fuels, mining, drilling for oil and natural gas. Agriculture is going to be the next big thing. Harvesting crops, growing crops, harvesting animals, our animal farms. So about 88% of all of our waste comes from those two avenues. However, our municipal waste, we produce about 200 million tons of municipal waste a year. And that only accounts for about 1.5% of our total waste that is produced. So on average, we're looking at about 11 billion tons a year that is waste produced here in the U.S. We have two categories of waste: biodegradable, non-biodegradable. Very straightforward. Biodegradable means it is usually made from an organic substance, and that means nature can break it down over time. Animal waste, food waste, paper, those types of things. Non-biodegradable means it's not made from organic substances, and so it cannot be broken down by nature, like concrete, metal, glass, as an example. Usually your non-biodegradable needs to be recycled. Sometimes it can't be recycled, but most of the times our non-biodegradables can be recycled. Now, as far as our municipal waste goes, municipal solid waste is produced by homes, schools, and businesses. 200 million tons a year of it, and this is how it's broken down. Paper is the big one, but food, waste from food, our leftover food that we throw in the trash, and then yard clippings, those types of things. Those are the top two takers for the amount of municipal waste that is produced by the U.S. These are some ways that we can dispose: burning, recycling, landfills. Landfill is the biggest way that we dispose of our waste, and we're going to kind of look at the pros and cons of some of these. We know burning is very proactive. It helps reduce the volume of the waste that we have here in the U.S. It requires less on landfills. However, it does produce toxins, greenhouse gases. It does cost a lot of money. And if we have a lot more room because of a lot less waste, then that would actually encourage producing more waste. So there are disadvantages. Now, ways we bury waste. These are some ways we're going to bury waste, and we're going to look at these and a few of these as we go. We're going to focus on sanitary landfills, how the leachate collection works, and how monitoring wells work. Alright, sanitary landfills. Most of our landfills would like to say they're sanitary. If you drive by them, or you visit them, you might kind of disagree with the fact that maybe they're sanitary landfills. However, a nice picture. What I want you to focus on is looking at the methane gas recovery, the gases that are produced by the waste that is buried in a landfill, how it's piped off and it's actually going to be converted into a less harmful substance. You have these leachate pipes that are going to help collect liquid waste that is produced in a landfill and pipe it off as well, and then there are layers that help prevent leaking of these waste into our groundwater. Trade-offs: there's always going to be disadvantages to everything, but the big advantage is you're not burning, you're not putting things into the atmosphere. If it's a sanitary landfill, there's going to be little to no odor, little to no groundwater pollution, can be built quickly, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. Alright, let's get into hazardous wastes. Our hazardous wastes are usually going to be waste that has one type of toxic compound that is combustible. It could be either reactive or explosive, more times reactive, and they are corrosive. These are the way that we deal with hazardous waste. We try to recycle and reuse first. After that, then we try to convert them into a less hazardous type of substance, and then we store them. Sometimes it's long-term storage, sometimes short-term storage, depending on the type of waste. Here's a snapshot or a graphic of what a hazardous waste landfill might look like, usually using these metal waste drums to help store it, having technology sensors to monitor gas production if there's leaks, or liquid waste production if there are leaks, and then monitoring the groundwater to make sure that if something does happen to leak into the groundwater, that it can be cleaned up very quickly. All right, this is talking about surface impoundments like waste ponds. We have some waste ponds south of Garland that we store liquid waste. Advantages, disadvantages, very straightforward. You can kind of look over this on your own. Types of liquid waste, we have sewage, and then we have acid drainage from coal mining. Obviously the biggest is going to be sewage, but a close second is going to be the materials, the waste that is produced from coal mining. Remember when we looked at coal mining, they got to use water to keep dust down, to keep machinery cooled so it doesn't overheat. So these are the two big processes where our liquid waste is going to be produced. These are some ways we can store liquid waste, and let's get into the. We're going to look at. We talked about the ponds a little bit. Landfills, obviously, not sanitary landfills, but landfills. But the big one is going to be the sewage treatment plants. Most of the times, cities will have sewage treatment plants where they manage this liquid waste. Here, this little picture talks about deep underground wells. Very straightforward. You can look at this on your own. Let's talk about radioactive waste now. We have two major categories, low level, high level. Low levels is the stuff that we are exposed to in low quantities. Medical field is going to have some low level radioactive waste. Certain things that are used to clean chemical spills. Certain types of things that are going to help clean contaminated clothing, whether it have blood on it or something like that. That's going to have low level radiation waste. This is short-lived radioactivity. It can be buried. It can be stored in that way for a very long time and not have any side effect. Our high-level radiation or radioactive waste is what the issue is, and they have to take extra care with it. Only about 10% of our radioactive waste in the U.S. is high level, but these are those fuel rods that power our nuclear power plants, that power our atomic weapons, power our nuclear reactors that we use in submarines and other types of venues. Those fuel rods that contain high concentrations of plutonium and radium, they're going to produce radioactive materials or radiation for millions of years, and they have to be temporarily stored in various ways underwater in cement casings to try to limit the amount of radiation that escapes into the environment. Okay, now dealing with waste material. Our first priority is looking at primary pollution and the ways that we can prevent it, using less harmful products, purchasing alternative products, those types of things. Our second priority then would be looking at trying to recycle and reuse, maybe repair things so we're not making new things. Going for buying things that are made from recyclable or reused materials. And then our last priority would be how we're going to treat the waste to reduce the harmful impacts that it can have. All right, regulations in the U.S. You've got the RCRA, the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. You've got this Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation Liability Act, and you've got the National Priority List, and the polluter pays principle law that can be imposed on individuals and companies. So these are ways that the U.S. tries to help regulate the amount of waste in the U.S. Obviously, reuse is a big thing. If we can reuse, it extends resources available. so we're not draining resources. It helps save energy and money if we can reuse. Reduces pollution, obviously, less pollution if you're reusing the same materials and not getting new materials and then new materials and creating more waste and more waste. It does create jobs when you reuse, because you have to have companies to make these products in a reusable fashion. Now, as far as recyclable materials goes, recyclable materials are easily isolated from other waste. We know that we can recycle them, so usually they are separate when they go to waste facilities. We can get them in large quantities. They are going to be definitely valuable where you're talking about plastics or paper or metal cans, metal products, wood products. Things that can be recycled are going to be very valuable, because it's going to, in the long run, take less energy to make those things into new materials than it would be to go out and harvest the raw material to make the same material. So using these recycled materials is very valuable. Benefits of recycling. Here's a nice little flow chart. You can peruse this on your own, but it does have a big impact. It helps save energy. It does help save energy. It does help make our fuel supplies last longer. There's a lot of incentives to recycling our waste materials. All right. Plastic recycling, another nice little snapshot of the types of plastics, the clarity or the properties of each type of plastic, and the ways that we use these types of plastics, whether it be soft drinks, water bottles, juice bottles, frozen food bags, those types of things. So this is a nice snapshot that you can refer back to. And that's it. Now, this next thing we're going to be looking at, this U.S. waste, you're going to get a chance to look at where a lot of the waste comes from in the U.S.